Hey, let's take a look at how I created this track in perfect Afro House style, a genre that's really taking off right now. What Afro House does, in my opinion, is embrace two completely different things and blend them together. We especially find that wild tribal part in the drums and vocals that, unfortunately, we've lost over time. And there's a part that's much more technological, representing the times we're living in today, characterized by these chord progressions, these plucks, these sounds that give rhythm to the genre. Rhythm, within the limits of possibility. In fact, it's a genre that I really like producing. It's a genre that's quite fun to produce, but it's a genre that, in my opinion, is packable because it has a very slow pace. But those are personal tastes. Each their own, everyone has their own preferences. You'll find the link to download this project for free in the description, but only for a limited time, so hurry up and grab it. First thing I did was take a look at Beatport. At least I got a sense what BPM we're working with. If we take a look, we're averaging around 120, 121, 122. It's a very laid-back genre. One of those that really pushes hard. Okay, let's set our BPM to 121. Listen to the drums and figure out how I created these drums. What characterizes the drums? All right, let's start with the kick. As you might have heard, it's a very light kick, a very clean kick. It's not one of those extreme, incredible kicks. Then another very important thing is the shakers. Inside this Afro House production, we feel these shakers that are always there. They are very important. I had tried to create shakers directly from the drum rack, but they didn't work very well for this genre. In fact, I actually created and added some shakers I found online that are somehow much more realistic and fresh. There are indeed two of them. This one and this one. I panned one slightly to the left and the other slightly to the right. And this is the result for now. Okay, now let's really talk about the percussion. Here too, if we listen to the percussion, it has a pattern that repeats quite a bit. I wouldn't say it's like reggaeton. No, but we have this rhythm that, if you listen to it, is quite repetitive. Anyway, you probably already know this, but let's take a look at Splice and also check out some free resources online. There are billions of these ready-made percussion sounds out there, so we can easily find some percussion loops to create this foundation for Afro House tracks. Okay, as for the bass, in the end, it's pretty simple. At least I kept it very straightforward. What can really set us apart and allow us to get a bit more creative is the part that involves the chords, the bass line, and these background plucks. Okay, let's start with the chords. Let's add a MIDI clip. I'm just using a piano. And let's select a scale. Here we need to select a scale with a pretty sad mood. It's not like Afro House is a very happy, cheerful genre. So the minor scales are more suited to a slightly sadder mood. To keep it simple, I'll choose a minor, especially since the vocal we'll be hearing later is in a minor. Okay, let's create our chord loop. We'll start, as always, simply with the root notes, the main notes, and then we'll build more or less complex chords on top of that. It doesn't matter to create any extreme chord progressions. Let's move up an octave. Okay, this is the bass. Let's build the triads over the root notes, over the main notes by simply creating 3 notes like this. And these are the triads. I also tried adding sevenths, just by putting in one more note, but I think they sounded much better before. Yes, I don't even want to give too much rhythm to these chords because Afro House doesn't really have a lot of rhythm. It's a pretty simple genre, but we can add, for example, some passing notes. Let's try here. Yes. Maybe one here too as well, perhaps. Okay, how can we give a bit of rhythm to these chords, make them sound a bit more human? There are those options we can use, like adjusting the velocity of each note, which means how hard a note was pressed, because right now they sound very robotic. A musician playing the keyboard will never press the keys with the same force. And we can also move them slightly off the grid to give it a bit of rhythm. Alright, I found Sculptor. You can download it easily too. If I'm not mistaken, it's a device for Max for Live. We put it on top, and we can automatically do what I just mentioned. Okay, let's open it. You can see a saw. Let's make it a bit bigger. There we go. We select them all. With the start time as we move, you'll see that the start points are moving too. As you can clearly see in this scene, all of them are moving around continuously, making it quite evident to anyone observing. And what we were interested in was also the velocity. Look how velocity moves. There we go. We've added a personal touch. Then we can also adjust them manually. We can pause on a note, hold Alt, and adjust the velocity simply with the mouse. And we're set. A super simple chord progression that we'll also use to create the bass line. Let's copy the chord progression right here and give it the color of the bass line. For the bass line, we'll use a sub bass, basic subsign, which we can find in Ableton Live. Let's keep only the root notes, main notes, and from here we'll create our bass line. We can use the EQ8 to check if we're in the right range, but it doesn't seem like we are. Let's go here. The bass line is located, let's say, just before this square here, which is basically below 100 Hertz. So we select all three notes, and with Shift, we lower them down an octave to have a bass line, a nice sub bass that sits in the right frequencies. Okay, let's listen. Okay, now I'm going to bring in the vocals, and there are literally a billion vocals available today, because as I said, this genre is booming. Just take a look online, and you'll find so many vocals. Let's listen to where we are at, and then we'll create the pluck, and we'll have everything done. Okay, let's create this pluck that will add a lot of rhythm within the limits of what this genre can have. We'll do it with Serum. Okay, since we're in a minor, let's put a note on A and make it long, maybe the whole clip. Let's start with oscillator A. We'll select the basic MCB, and for oscillator B, we'll use the analog basic mini. Let's solo it for a moment. What are we doing? Let's apply a bit of unison. The first one.
Let's bring it closer. Now let's go with the LFO. Give it some rhythm. Let's set it the volume of the second one. Let's select the 16th note.
In this segment, we are going to focus on activating the filter, specifically for this particular instance, while deliberately choosing not to apply it to another. This decision is crucial for achieving the desired sound effect. Additionally,
We will strategically place the low frequency oscillator, or LFO, in this section as well.
Okay, now you have all the basics to create your Afro songs. It's a very basic song, but you understand what we're talking about. We're going to create these fairly simple drums, which have these repetitive percussion patterns and these shakers that have a very natural sound that are very reminiscent of the earth, of the tribe. And then we'll create a chord progression. The important thing is to choose melancholic moods. We can make chords that are a bit more complex than the ones I did with fairly simple bass lines that follow the chords. We're not making any incredible bass lines here. And the vocals will always be in the Afro style, along with these pluck sounds that add rhythm within the limits of what this genre can offer to the track. Okay, the video is over. As always, we'll see you next week. You can find all the links in the description if you want to dive a bit deeper into my social media and what I explained.